I love February. Relationships. Valentine's. Romance. Chocolate. What more could we want? I look forward to all of that. It's also a wonderful opportunity, since we're kind of in that mood, to think about. I mean, all of that is, in one way or another, about relating, about relationship. We have many relationships in our lives. We may have one with a capital R, or not. But whenever we are in conversation, in dialogue with another being, might be a tree, or a spider, or the crocus coming up in my front yard, way too early, but oh, I'm so happy to see it. Those are all relationships. It's a good topic to think about, because who are we, and with what or whom are we relating? A couple of weeks ago, when I talked about not one, not two, that was the idea that I wanted to introduce. Who are we relating to? How? To whom? To what? The appearance on the surface isn't the whole story. And the core of the story really isn't on the surface. So we are relationship. I mean, we have physical bodies. We, have all kinds of stuff going on in our lives. But in spirit, what we are is relating. Now, how do I know that? I don't know if any of you have read. Would you believe theology is an ever-evolving field? Yeah, it really is. And more and more and more, they're coming back to the idea of the Trinity, except it's not the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Nope. Not anybody. There's no person. The divine is not a person, or even three people. Neither are we. A person. Okay, that leaves open all kinds of interesting thoughts, doesn't it? I'm not going to go there. I don't know where, but where's she going? Right. What they are concluding, and this fits in with ancient wisdom from the Greeks, from even, from recorded history and unrecorded history passed down through various traditions, is that the power, that one presence and one power that we talk about in unity, is in fact, and science, is now into the wave and the particle, right? The vibration and the static, and it's all the same. It's another way of saying it. Actually, probably the most eloquent, accurate way of stating what it is that we all are is in the book of Exodus, with what is recorded that Moses was given from the burning bush. I am sent you. Now, we've always just translated that, right? Equals God. And we all have these pictures in our heads of God as a person, right? Or maybe a place, or maybe a thing, but something that we can name. That's what our human brains want to latch onto. A name. I am is really hard to name. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever thought that when you've heard that phrase, like, huh? Who's that? Not a who. Doesn't answer the question who. Doesn't answer the question what. Doesn't even answer the question where. It is. It's vibrating. It's relating. And so what the theologians are saying is that the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost are a symbolic, hey, what a surprise in unity. Everything's symbolic. A symbolic way of saying that the power lies between the people, places, and things. It's in the empty spaces. And it is the empty spaces that aren't empty. That we are relating always. Always. You think about it? Isn't that true? From morning to night, we're relating. I don't know about you, but I wake up and I don't want to move until an idea, a person, or a situation, or, some noun comes into my mind, and I go, oh, yeah, and then I get excited and I want to move. Some mornings takes a while. But that's what life is. Life is relating. Think about any worries you came in here with, any concerns you've had driving over here this morning. Some of you had a longer time to experience concerns than others. It's the way it goes. How many of them did not involve relating? Think about it. We're all about. Every problem that comes up has to do with relating. And even those people who think they're going to run away from the whole can of worms and live as hermits, ultimately, it's not possible. You can come close. I was just reading about, and it might have been a work of fiction, I don't know. But what's the difference between fiction and reality? Very thin membrane, if at all. Seriously, you ever try to write nonfiction? It's virtually impossible without making something up somewhere along the line. Try it. Nonfiction is fiction because you're making it up. You're the one telling it, and your story is very different than anybody else's. And B, how do you get the details? You gotta make something up. Anyway, in our relationships, we're always making things up. Why? Because we think we're relating from our individual little box, little Martian man with antennae, right? Me. We think this little self somehow is relating. No way, can't do it. Because we're not that. And in thinking that we're that, we see we don't very often look at what we're doing unless somebody else calls our attention to it. I mean, really, you gotta realize that. But we see what everybody else is doing. And we think, I wouldn't do it like that. How come they don't know what's right? They could do it much better than that. That's really dumb. Right? Sometimes you can think, oh, hey, that's not a bad idea. Well, judgments can be positive and negative, but they're judgments. And a judgment is a story we make up based on what we are seeing and understanding, based on a whole complex of experiences and stories that we've created going back to before we could talk about how the world works and who we are and how we are in the world, which is, I think, all about relating.
Rosemary, so if somebody said they're doing it like this and I do it this way, is that just an awareness?
Yes, it can be.
I wouldn't be judging that.
You don't have to be judging it. You know, yeah, I mean, it's a fact. We all have our own ways as human beings of seeing and responding. But where does truth lie? Where is our true essence? It's in oneness, in spirit. Part of the Trinity is mind, consciousness, and the ideas that come out of consciousness, and the ways that these ideas get expressed in outer experience. That's the actual relationship at the core of all reality. And in mind and consciousness, yeah, we have our own physical story, our own physical movie, if you will, stage play, drama. But you can be sure that any time there's drama involved, where are you being aware? In the universal energy or in your own personal little story? Yeah. Whenever there's drama, that's like a big neon light going, story, story, story. And God knows in relationship there's all kinds of dramas. So I'm going to suggest, based on just on that awareness, there's actually a very simple, resonant action that we can take to just leave the dramas. And that is by shifting the field of our awareness. Whenever we get that neon light that says, story, 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 story. Oh yeah, okay, bye. We have another field of awareness. We actually have our own little one. We're so blessed. And this other universal one. That is relating. It's not a noun, it's a verb. We shift into the verb of universal, relating. We've practiced doing this. We practice doing it every Sunday. There are a number of ways of doing it, but one really reliable way is breathe more slowly. That changes everything in our physical vibration. And once we're vibrating in a different way, at a different rhythm, our mind connection is able to shift. So it's kind of like, how many of you know how to drive a stick car? Oh, good. It's kind of like you're shifting gears. You press down the clutch, you breathe differently, and then you shift into a different gear. And in that gear, it's kind of like super gear. You know, there's no physical stories. There's your shared mind, your shared awareness. And whatever gear we're in, that's what we can drive in. Right? Do you remember from driving a stick shift car? It's really impossible to go 80 miles an hour when you're driving in second. And so, I don't know, there's some 5-gear cars, I believe, that, oh boy, if you want to go fast, that's where to be. So let's say this is 5th gear. And you are. You vibrate, you relate, and you don't worry about the stories. You are not in that resonance. And frankly, if they're going on, you don't notice it. And I can tell you that, you know, if 2 people or a bunch of people are in that awareness, they're not suffering from anybody's stories, because the awareness that we're in is what we're in. And in divine awareness, in divine vibration, there's no separation. You and you and you and you and I aren't separate from each other. We share the same awareness. When we're in 5th gear, when we are into our vibration, our relating as one. There's no lines. One of the things that I really, really, really appreciate about unity, unity didn't make up any of this stuff, okay? This is not a separate doctrine or a separate way of looking at things. Like I said, you can find this somehow, somewhere in every historic cosmology, every historic metaphysics. You can go to the Greek philosophers, you can go to Native American shamans. You can go to Buddhists, you know, the teachings of the Buddha. You can go to the yogis. Everybody has this same awareness because we do. And when we get out of the outer and all our concerns about everybody's stories, there is just one awareness. What I love about unity is we have a bunch of people. Now, there's an American spin on unity, which I love. Other countries, other traditions, you know, live this very differently. But the American spin is, hey, let's figure out how to make this work for us. Let's be practical. Let's figure out how to be happy. You know, and there's been generations of unity teachers with that American mindset. And American is a label, which means it's a separator. But I have to admit that I'm in that group, in that label. I can relate to that, as I can relate to the overall perception. And so I'm going to share with you today 3 different unity teachers and their spin on how to use this global awareness, things we can do to use this global awareness in our day-to-day relationships. Okay? So the first one is Winifred Hausman, who somewhere around the mid-1900s wrote a book called Love-Powered Living. And she wrote, describing the one consciousness, there is no separation in God's universe. What hurts one hurts all. What helps one helps all. And then she says, every appearance of evil also has a good side. We know that's true. Everything has 2 sides. That's one of the basic metaphysical principles. Everything, the Tao, that's the teaching of the Tao Te Ching. But it's the truth that every idea has different manifestations. And they appear sometimes as polar opposites. They're the same idea. So that's what she's saying here. Every appearance of evil has a good side, and it's up to us to discover that and acknowledge it. That's a piece of relating from the absolute realm. And in order to do that, we need to turn our awareness into the absolute realm, to what is within. I can't tell you how many people I have observed in the last week talking about God. Huh? I've caught myself doing that too. But that's an expression of, okay, where we think this universal awareness is. Not up there anywhere. So next time you talk to God, you need to talk about God. Because all God is that relating, that constant relating. There is no separation in God's universe. In the absolute realm, we're all aware simultaneously. And, you know, when we do different rituals or we tune into somebody's gift of perception in the spiritual realm, we're acknowledging that. That's what they're working from. That's what they're seeing, as long as the effect is total good. That's another GPS kind of thing. You know, if what you get in relating to someone or following their ideas is the greater happiness that you get when you have one of those wonderful experiences, that's real. If it's any kind of drama, story, it's not real. It's really quite simple. We need to live outside the stories. Eric Butterworth, the famous unity teacher, taught people a really good technique, I think, a very helpful technique. He said, relating is all about drawing lines. Drawing lines where? In our mind. Yeah. Whenever we say something about somebody else, that implies a judgment. We're drawing a line between them and us. Any label we conceive of for someone else it's a line. Sometimes we get lots of lines between us and somebody else. Sometimes when we're in the middle of an argument, it's like a wall between us and the other person. Not just a little line. And when we approach that other person, that's all we can think of, is the line, the wall. We're still arguing with them, and they're over there and we're here. We all do it. So, what does Butterworth say to do? He said, okay, think about this a little bit. Go within, breathe, and envision the whole situation, including you and everybody else. And then figure out how to draw the line around everybody. And so, all of a sudden, with an idea, with a thought, the whole situation changes. You're not on the other side of the line from the other person. You're in the circle with them. You feel a little bit uncomfortable at first if you don't like them particularly, or if you're in the middle of a big fight or disagreement. It's like, what am I doing here with you? But there you are. And the next steps come from both of you being in the same circle. So together, there's an issue. How do we see that? It's a whole different approach. And if you try it in a real moment with somebody else, it's amazing, because what Butterworth says actually happens. And what he says is, the disconnect dissolves. Spirit in you both dissolves the disconnect. Just a question of, where are you drawing the line? He says, he calls it a circle of love. And he says, become a center of love. And you will be centered in a circle of protection. In this awareness, no harm can befall you. Anyone coming into your circle, your shared circle, is lifted into the aura of one consciousness. And when you're in one consciousness, none of these dramas matter. They don't exist anymore. They only exist in the one context. And the third teachers that I wanted to introduce to you from the 1960s and 70s were beloved teachers at Unity Village, Frank and Martha Giudici. And they taught a lot of Unity people back then. Great idea. Somewhere along the line it was discovered in a file box at Unity that the Fillmores had, way back, sat down with each other and made a covenant, written it out and signed it, that they would pledge to live only from their divine awareness. And they had that covenant in their heart all their lives. And we see in what we know about Unity Village and about Unity Farm and about Unity Restaurant, that they really lived from that awareness all their lives. And people are still following them based on that. People know that that is an expression of truth, of true relating. And so the Giudicis taught people to create and make their own covenants, especially around relationships. And every other being in your life represents a relationship. You know, we all have different kinds. But that's where we find spirit. That's where we experience spirit, is in those relationships. So it's an opportunity to change our awareness with another person, around another person, and live from a whole different place. So next Sunday, after the service, I'm going to do a little session for an hour, and it will be a visioning session around a relationship. There's, on the back table, there's a sign-up sheet, and there's also an instruction sheet. How do you get started? So anybody who wants to be a part of that, just sign up, make sure you stay after the service next Sunday, and we will go ahead and have this awesome metaphysical experience, which I'm looking forward to. So when we follow those metaphysical teachings, when we remember our oneness, we become powerful in love in our lives. We're no longer a victim of anybody, of anything. We're building bridges of communication and peace. And as a result, we exert a positive influence on our lives, on the lives of whoever we're in relationship with. And so it is.
And so it is.